Senator Ricketts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Lew, for being here. The attacks and atrocities that Hamas committed were one of the darkest days in Israel's history. We saw reports of babies and toddlers beheaded. Women were raped and paraded bloody through the streets. We've seen kidnappings, including of children. And this isn't something that is confined just to Israelis. We know there's not only 1,400 Israelis have been killed, but 31 Americans have been killed. And we are also concerned about the hostages that include not just Israelis, but potentially Americans as well. And Hamas continues to block the evacuation routes within Gaza so they can use Palestinians, children, and civilians in Gaza as human shields. They force innocents into harm's way for their twisted propaganda. Hamas represents the worst of humanity. I believe the U.S. must stand shoulder to shoulder with the state of Israel. We need to stand with them in their time as they have declared war on Hamas to fight this war. It is in that context that when I hear for calls of ceasefire or de-escalation, that's just foolishness. This is a war that Israel needs to prosecute, and we need to give Israel the weapons they need to be able to do it. We need to give them interceptors for the Iron Dome, additional batteries to protect innocent Israelis from these rocket attacks. Now, obviously, there was an intelligence failure to detect this attack, and time will come to be able to dig into what happened there and address it. But even worse, the Biden administration's failed policy on Iran has enabled Hamas to make these attacks in the first place. Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism. They support Hamas. Hamas would not be able to do this without Iran's support. Since coming to office, the Biden administration has failed to enforce the Iranian oil sanctions. We heard that from Chairman or Ranking Member earlier. And that's provided the regime billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars of funding that have subsequently could be used for funding terrorists, especially their proxy Hamas, to attack Israel. And according to a Wall Street Journal report, that while the IRGC was coordinating an attack with Hamas to kill Israelis, the Biden administration was negotiating a secret deal to be able to free up $6 billion of money for Iran. And that certainly goes to, if that report is true, how Iran just holds nothing but contempt for the United States and will deal behind our back even while trying to negotiate. You know, these are just mind-boggling decisions. It's a continuation of the disastrous Obama administration Iran policy that you, Mr. Lew, helped orchestrate. You were one of the key implementers of the flawed Iran nuclear deal. Iran wants to annihilate Israel, wants to wipe them off the face of the earth. The Iran deal, given its very sunsets, would have put Iran on a path to be able to continue to enrich uranium for a nuclear weapon. And it's a certain irony that one of those sunsets, the UN's prohibition against Iran missile and drone activity, which Iran was already violating, is set to expire today. The deal that provided Iran with billions of dollars in sanctions relief that you oversaw, this relief has subsidized the support for Hamas that enabled them to carry out like the ones we saw 11 days ago. This deal was so bad that Prime Minister Netanyahu had come to before the Congress to speak out against it. And you criticized that, and we're going to get to that in just here a second. The barbaric events of October 7th are a referendum on the disastrous Iran policy, started under the Obama administration and continued under this Biden administration. The Biden administration needs to complete a complete overhaul in the way that we see Iran and how we deal with it. And my fear, Mr. Lew, is that you are more simply of the same. You just represent a continuation of that policy. So I have some questions, and these are yes or no questions. Just I want to clarify some of the facts here on what you believe. Do you believe that the Biden administration should continue to restart the JCPOA talks?
I don't think this is the moment for us to be negotiating with Iran. I believe deeply that an agreement to not have nuclear weapons would be a good thing, but this is not the moment.
Mr. Lew, in 2017 at an event at Columbia University, did you say, quote, the personal dynamic between the president and the prime minister was not as good as one might have hoped, and it was in both directions. I mean, I saw as much provocation coming from the Prime Minister. I saw more provocation coming in than I saw going out. Is that an accurate quote?
I don't remember the exact words, but it is something that I said to a group of students, and it was a balanced statement where even what you read was criticizing my own president as well. I thought there was blame to go around.
So when Prime Minister Netanyahu came here in his 2015 speech, did you criticize it, saying it went beyond the pale of what you can just ignore, and that it was a huge mistake for Israel?
I did think it was a mistake to have something that would create a partisan division over U.S. support for Israel, which for 75 years has been bipartisan.
Do you believe Israel should continue to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel?
Jerusalem is recognized now as the capital of Jerusalem. There's no discussion of changing that. I, if confirmed, will be living in Jerusalem, and that is the policy of the United States.
And so you believe we should keep our embassy there?
Well, we first need to build an embassy. We have a presence, but having been Deputy Secretary of State, I know it takes a long time anywhere to build an embassy.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the extra time.
If I can just make one point, Mr. Chairman, if I can, because you said that this administration was negotiating to give Iran its money back. I think what this administration was doing was negotiating to bring Americans home who were being kept captive in Iran. And they made the judgment that releasing monies that were being held pursuant to policies of the prior administration could be moved in a way that Iran could use them as the prior administration had agreed to. That's very different from saying we're going to negotiate to give Iran money.
So do you believe then it was appropriate then to release these funds to get our hostage, or the people Iran was keeping back, like basically pay to get those Americans out? Do you believe that was accurate?
I can tell you that bringing Americans home safely will be one of my highest priorities if I'm in Israel. And there are now Americans being held hostage in Gaza. And I don't know what it will take to do that, but I'll wake up every day asking, what can I do to bring Americans home safely?
So, but you do believe that it was appropriate to pay Iran to get the Americans back?
To tell you the truth, Senator, I'm not deeply enough familiar with it. I wasn't in government when the decision was made. I don't know all the trade-offs. I do know the passion that goes behind bringing Americans home safely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your
Senator
forbearance.
Murphy.
Thank you very much.